Gameweek 25 is here, so it's time to lock in those FPL teams. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan, and it's been a little while since the last FPL deadline, but it's time to get stuck right back in. So guys, I have to be totally honest with you, Game Week 24 for me was an absolute disaster, and there's one thing having a bad game week, and there's another thing having a bad game week and then having to present said bad game week to tens of thousands of people. But I suppose there's worse problems in life to have, but we do need to dissect just what happened, why it was so bad for me in Game Week 24, because 114 points, despite the -8, sounds like a good score, but it really was an absolutely crazy freak game week, and a few things did go very, very wrong for me. A couple of things to note: Slots obviously conceding in the 100 millionth minutes of the Everton game, lost him some points for my assistant manager, with Moyes' assistant managers really benefiting from that, so congratulations to you guys. And then we had the case of, well, not too many players scoring points in my team. 3 injuries during the game week. One was to Trent, who was unable to start the second game, the double, and Dye injured in the second game as well, and Jackson injured as well in his game. And the worst thing of all is that I had a 50-50 decision to make at deadline, and that was going to be whether I brought in Dye for Jackson or Wood. Guess who I sold? I sold Wood instead of Jackson, and the reason I did that was because even though I preferred Wood for Game Week 24, I was thinking Jackson has a small chance of a double game week in 25. That would have happened if Arsenal beat Newcastle in the League Cup. And I also thought Jackson has some great fixes coming up, Southampton and Leicester. However, that has gone as wrong as it possibly could. Wood with a freak hat-trick. He never scores hat-tricks, but he did it in Game Week 24. Jackson gets injured in his game against West Ham. And to make matters worse, there is no double game week for Jackson. And even those good game weeks in the future, Jackson is now going to be injured for those game weeks. We'll go over the Jackson injury later in the video. So everything that could have possibly went wrong with the Jackson versus Wood 50-50 decision, who I should sell, it did go incredibly wrong. And I suppose the last thing that maybe went wrong is that I took a risk and actually went early on my transfers for Game Week 24, not expecting the surprise double Game Week 25 to happen, which really scuppered a lot of my plans. So I had to take a -8 to resolve the issue. So all in all, it has been probably the biggest disaster game week of my season. I think a lot of that can be put down to decision making. I totally agree that I, in hindsight, definitely should have sold Jackson instead of Wood, and it was a difficult decision for me even then. So totally understand if there are people who think, Dan, you just made a bad decision, because that actually would have got me a green arrow if I'd sold Jackson instead of Wood. But we can only dwell on these things so much. The good thing is that because I did take a -8 last week, and because of the moves I made, I am pretty well set up for the future now. But that doesn't help me right now. So bad game week for me. Hopefully it makes some of you guys feel a little bit better about your game weeks if you feel like you weren't quite up to scratch. Believe me, some people out there are worse, and I'm probably one of those people. So yeah, let's try and move on from this, because I don't want to look at this page anymore. It's giving me misery. But if you do fancy cheering me up on this day, please do drop a like on the video. It would be massively appreciated. And guys, we are actually aiming for 220,000 subscribers during this season, and we're super close to that. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing as well, I know about 40% of you watching are not subscribed. We could maybe hit my season target within the next couple of weeks. That would be amazing if you guys can help me out with that. But let's move on to Game Week 25. So hopefully many of you guys have not lost faith in me and my FPL abilities quite yet, and we're going to try and pull this back. We really are. And like I said, I do think I'm well set up now, particularly for executing my master chip strategy plan, which should go well and claw me back. Let's see how it goes. But we have one free transfer, 0.2 million in the bank. Of course, my assistant manager is still on Arne Slot ahead of his double game week against Wolves and Aston Villa. And the good thing about being a slot assistant manager is, I suppose, there's no need for a transfer there. So whilst a lot of Moyes assistant manager people may have benefited last game week, very much benefited, they will have to probably use a transfer this week on the assistant manager. And I'm freed up there at least, which makes me feel a little bit better about the injuries that I have in my team. So let's go through this squad. Pickford is the first player here in goal. Everton much improved at the moment, which is good to see. An away game against Crystal Palace, I think it could yield some rewards with the ability that Everton have under David Moyes. They are looking much better, so I'm happy to hold Pickford for several game weeks now. Hopefully some clean sheets in this run and some save points as well. In defence, we have Trent Alexander-Arnold with his double game week against Wolves and Aston Villa. It's a nice little combo, little duo for him, and given that he was able to make a substitute appearance in game week 24 during that second game, I do have faith that he will be available for this double game week, so no plans to move him on. Think you've got to keep him if you have him. Gabriel is still in my team. I know a lot of people have sold Arsenal defenders recently, but the next couple of games look really, really nice for Arsenal indeed, and I'm still hoping for that Gabriel bullet header. Feels like it's been a little while since we've seen one of them, but I would much appreciate one in the not so distant future. And Kirkes is going to be my final defender today. One good thing about my team is that I do have some Bournemouth players, and Kirkes against Southampton presents an excellent opportunity to get some points. In fact, guys, let's have a look at the expected clean sheets for this game week. Well, the projected clean sheets, should I say. And this graphic comes in from Rob T on Twitter. And we see that Liverpool and Aston Villa have the best chances of clean sheets, almost, because Arsenal actually have a slightly better chance of one or more clean sheet. I know Arsenal can't get one or more, but in terms of projected clean sheets, Arsenal 1% ahead of Aston Villa of their chances of getting the clean sheet this week. But Liverpool way out in front, 61%. So that's good for Trent, is good for Van Dijk, Konate, even Slot, who will benefit from clean sheets during the double game week. And we've got Arsenal defence covered as well. No Aston Villa defensive coverage for me right now. I'm not really thinking about it because it's a team I don't particularly trust. If we go down the list, we can see that Bournemouth also have a 33% chance of a clean sheet against Southampton away, which is pretty decent. But Crystal Palace are actually ahead of them. So if you do have a Daniel Munoz in your squad, for example, I think he could be really, really useful against Everton at home this week. We also see Fulham with 33% chance of a clean sheet. And outside of those, how many teams is that? 6 teams with decent chances of clean sheets. There's not really anyone else standing out for clean sheet potential. Even the teams like Nottingham Forest, only 24% chance of a clean sheet this week. So I think looking through my defence, I am reasonably well set up for this game week, and hopefully we can start getting some points in the defensive areas. But we'll move on into midfield, and here we have Mo Salah. Absolutely extraordinary points again in Game Week 24. This guy is on the season of not just a lifetime, but any lifetime in the history of FPL. This is unprecedented stuff. And he only needs, another 45, 50 points to break the record for most points in an FPL season of any player ever. He probably does that in the next 2 or 3 game weeks. That's how crazy he is. So yeah, Salah, yeah, there's no doubt about it how essential he is. Cole Palmer is also in my team here. An assist last game week broke a bit of a streak of blanks, and we do have some nice fixtures coming up for him. Southampton and Leicester I'm looking ahead to. But even Brighton, despite Chelsea losing to Brighton in the FA Cup, we did see Brighton lose 7-0 in game week 24. So they're definitely a team that can be exploited. And who can forget the last time before the Nottingham Forest game that Brighton put up a disaster performance was indeed against Chelsea earlier on in the season, and that was a game where Palmer got 25 points, something crazy like that. So can he do it again in the reverse fixture? Fingers crossed on that one. Brian Mbeumo is next in the team, and West Ham is a pretty decent fixture for him. West Ham still conceding plenty of goals despite new management, so I think that is going to be pretty good for him. Penalty extraordinaire as well, and he's in pretty good form. We'll show you the statistics shortly. Cliver is also in my team. Here's a player I picked up early for game week 24, taking a -8 in the end to make other transfers because I went early on Cliver. But the good thing is I've managed to gain some team value here with Cliver going on him very, very early. And I may have not been able to get to him if I didn't go early. So again, I'm trying to find positives here. I think it's important to try and find positives when you have had a bad game week and try and spur yourself on for the next week. So it's nice to have Cliver in my team, penalty taker, which is very, very nice, and a phenomenal fixture against Southampton. Operation Target Southampton is well and truly on with my double Bournemouth players here. But let's have a look here at the future fixtures for Bournemouth. So this is why I think it is so good to have Bournemouth players right now, not just because they play Southampton next, but going through their fixtures, they face Wolves in 26, then Brighton, Spurs, Brentford, Ipswich, and West Ham in 31. So if you're free hitting in 29, that's fine. Cliver and the Bournemouth boys all have good fixtures in and around that game week anyway. And if you are planning on wildcarding after game week 29, having Bournemouth players actually gives you the flexibility to postpone that wildcard closer to the game week 33 double. So it's quite nice in that sense. Yes, you could wildcard in game week 30, but if you're heavily loaded up on Bournemouth, you can postpone that to game week 31 or 32 if you wanted to wildcard there instead, because the good fixtures just keep coming for Bournemouth. So I think they're going to be really key players in the team, and it's nice to be doubled up, as I say. And the final player in my midfield this week is Morgan Rogers with the double game week. Now, I'm not sure if I would buy Rogers if I didn't have him already, considering he will have a blank game week in game week 29. But if you already have him, I think that's really good news. And despite the fact that Rodgers hasn't exactly been performing in the Premier League, in all other competitions, he has been absolutely smashing it. A goal and an assist against Spurs in the FA Cup a few days ago will hopefully be able to spur him on in this nice home fixture against Ipswich. And who knows what can happen in that Liverpool game as well. So despite Rodgers being a player I will be removing from my team by the time we reach game week 29, for now, actually, he's a pretty good player to have. Let's move up front, but before we do so, just want to have a look quickly at the forward numbers here. So we see in terms of expected goal involvements over the past 6 game weeks, and this is for all players per start, expected goal involvements per start, and this is on the Fantasy Football Hub Opta Stats tool, which you guys know I absolutely love. We of course see Salah at the top, but Brian Mbeumo is in second here, 0.8 expected goal involvements per match, and that's going to get even higher in some of these easier fixtures to come. Cole Palmer is still very high up on this list. Only Madueke and Savinho separate him from Mbeumo for those players with high expected goal involvements, and actually he is equal with them with 0.7. And a little further down the list is Justin Cliver, 0.5 expected goal involvements per start. Really, really nice as well. And again, in these good fixtures, we expect players like Mbeumo, Palmer, Cliver to actually outperform these numbers that they are currently putting up. So I think this is really positive, and I think this is a sign of a good and strong midfield. Rodgers is the exception. He doesn't have good numbers in the Premier League at all, really. So it's a little speculative, and I think he is probably the weak link in my midfield, if not for the double game week, which he does have. So in that sense, where's the weak link in my midfield? I don't think there is one. I think we're cooking. I think we're rocking. I think we're rolling. But there are some holes in my forward positions. But first of all, we have got Isak. He is not the hole. He is a holeless man. Make of that what you will. But Man City is the next fixture, and as we know, as we've seen against Real Madrid in the Champions League, against Arsenal in the Premier League, they can still concede a lot of goals. And Isak, with all of the ability he has, we know he is going to be a player to capitalise on these kind of situations. So I actually have pretty good faith in Isak, despite it being a tough fixture on paper. In real life, football is played on grass, and I don't think this game is going to be too difficult for Isak to get back to his scoring ways. And finally, in my starting 11 right now, I do have Nicholas Jackson, who is injured. How injured is he? I hear you cry. Very injured. In fact, the press conference from Maresca this morning suggested that he is going to be out until March at the earliest, which would put him out until game week 28 if you're lucky. Game week 29, there's a good chance he's out for game week 29 as well. So generally speaking, it's not looking good for Jackson. He is just a straight up sell, and I know you guys will probably agree that he's been a sell for a little while. I don't even know why he's still in my team. I've just been making moves in other areas, and Yeah, it's going to be a very good excuse to finally rid myself of a player who has been cursing my FPL season in recent weeks. So hopefully we can get back to positive ways with a new striker, but we will go over which striker I will be replacing Jackson with in the very near future. But first, let's have a look at the bench here, and we have Fabianski on the bench, not playing at the moment, and Dye, who's also picked up an injury. I don't know how significant that injury is just yet, but it didn't look good. Castagna is on my bench. We saw that he has a pretty decent chance of a clean sheet for that Fulham side as well, but I think we do prefer Kirkes. But I have to admit, if Castagna had to come on and play for me off the bench, I wouldn't be too upset about that. Hall is a little bit more difficult because despite Man City's defensive fragilities in attack, they are still scoring goals. So I don't think Hall will keep a clean sheet away against City, so he will be last on my bench for this game week. But let's talk about transfers. I need to make a transfer. Let's bring up the forward numbers. You expect to see Isak here again, last 6 game weeks, expected goal involvements per start. Mateta is currently at number 1. He does have a blank game week in 29, so I'm not looking to bring him in because I don't want to free hit in game week 29. Isak I already have here, but also in this list, there's 3 players with 0.9 expected goal involvements per start. Mateta, Isak, and Yoane Wissa, who's been going under the radar because he hasn't been scoring. His underlying numbers, however, are fantastic, and I've been watching him recently, keeping an eye on him to try and kind of figure out which forward I'd like to go for. And looking at the extended highlights of Wissa, it is clear that he is going to be my Jackson replacement because genuinely, guys, it's not just the chances he's getting, but even the chances he's not getting. And what I mean by that is his positioning. So central, constantly in the box, always ready to get a rebound goal or, you know, whether the ball is being crossed into him for him to take a headed effort. We see so much of that as well. And in this Brentford team who have great fixtures, no blank game week in game week 29, there are a lot of positives to be taken from Wissa right now. So despite the fact that, yes, I do have Mbermo in my team already, I'm more than willing to take a double up here and go for Wissa because I look at these numbers and this is everything we like in FPL. Best for expected goal involvement. In terms of his shots, he's taking 3.83 shots per start, which is incredible. 3 shots in the box per start, incredible. 1.5 big chances per start, incredible. I could go on and on. He is doing everything we want to see from an FPL asset. Nice and cheap at 6.3 million as well. And even though the points haven't come in recent game weeks, there's enough signs here for me that the points will come. So Wissa is going to be my guy. So let's lock it in, guys, with the transfer. Jackson is going to go out of the team. Goodbye. See you later. Good riddance. And Wissa, Yoane Wissa, the Donny himself, is in the team, which frees up a little bit of money in my bank, 1.7 million in the bank. And with Arne Slot, I also have 1.5 invested in him, which should be a good thing, really, for my transfers going forward, as now I have money in the bank. Slot is going to be going to give me his money back, and I should be able to make some really nice expensive transfer moves in a few game weeks time. I'm thinking maybe Rodgers could be upgraded to someone like Bowen or something like that. These are kind of ideas I'm toying with at the moment. And Dye up to a Wood or a Cunha for game week 29. Both of those guys have nice game week 29 fixtures. So it really opens up my options and allows me to kind of continue on the kind of grand plan of FPL this season. And one more note on Slot, because I know people will be asking, yes, he did technically get a red card in game week 24, but the assistant manager really has nothing to do with the manager. You're not picking the manager, you're picking the team. The only reason FPL call it the assistant manager and put the faces of the managers on the chip is purely for cosmetic reasons. It's for marketing purposes, because it's a little more interesting to see a little picture of Arne Slot in your FPL team than just a Liverpool badge. But really, it is just a Liverpool badge. You're betting on the team, not on the manager. So, yeah, Slot continues as normal, and there's not going to be any transfers there for me. So, this is what my team looks like going into Game Week 25. I think it looks strong. I actually think it looks very strong. I'm pretty happy with this. I don't think you'll see too many teams better set up for Game Week 25, in fact. But famous last words. Let's see how it turns out. But hopefully the comeback is on. So just to remind you guys of my chip strategy for this season, and by the way guys, really recommend you go check out the chip strategy guide I made 5 or 6 days ago. It is super useful, and honestly I think it's probably one of, if not my best video of the season. I think it's really going to help you guys out. But I'm going to go for strategy 1, if you remember strategy 1 from that video, and that is going to involve looking to not free hits in Game Week 29, using transfers to remove those blank Game Week players from Liverpool, Aston Villa, Newcastle and Crystal Palace, and go into Game Week 30 to 32 with a wild card at some point during that period. Then we'll get to Game Week 33, which is when I will bench boost, so the wild card that I use will be favoring a heavy double game week kind of bench boost, so plenty of fixtures in that game, maximizing there, and free hitting in Game Week 34, which we're expecting to be the biggest double game week of the season. So that could be really significant. We could see 8 teams blanking in Game Week 34, which is double what we're seeing in Game Week 29. And actually, looking at the cup ties, it is even more likely now than ever that we're going to see an enormous blank game week in Game Week 34. So could spell some big problems for a lot of people, but I think we got that covered. So those are the chips I've got remaining. That's how I intend on playing them. Wildcard somewhere between 30 and 32. Bench boost in 33. And in Game Week 34, of course, the free hit. So I think that looks pretty good. And by the way, guys, the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool has actually added in a new little helpful tool here where you can manually set when you want to play each of your chips, and that will actually give you more tips on when you should, who you should and shouldn't bring into your team. So I'm going to set Game Week 33 for my bench boost here. Just let that save here, and then free hit, we're planning Game Week 34. And by doing this, guys, it can help you make transfers a little bit more effectively depending on your own personal chip preference. So I'm going to set the wild card for Game Week 30 for now, but of course we're not completely set on that quite yet, but everything else is. And this really helps out a lot, because what we're seeing on Fantasy Football Hub now with the new updates is they give you like chances of blanks for each player on each game week. Like you can see what the chances of a blank here are. So let's go to Game Week 33 for 34, for example, and it will show you well, 30. Let's do 33. So it'll show you what the chances of a double here are, and we see at the moment that Newcastle versus Crystal Palace has an 85% chance of taking place in Game Week 33. So it's going to be a good idea to make sure you have Newcastle players by that point in the season. And yeah, as the weeks go by, we get more information. It's all going to be inputted into Fantasy Football Hub to give you the probability of double game weeks and blank game weeks, and we're talking specifically what the fixtures will be as well, not just kind of the general predictions that I'm making at the moment on when each double and blank will be. So super helpful, guys. Make sure you go check it out. Link in the description. You can get a free trial right now, or of course go premium and get access to all of the tools that I use all the time in the videos and outside the videos as well in my spare time. But there we go, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure you do drop a like, subscribe if you're new around here. Feel free to check out another video, and we'll be back tomorrow for 2 streams. Yeah, I'm going to stream twice tomorrow, so make sure you got those notifications on. But until then, thanks so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates. Bye bye.